This is one of my favorite recipes and a lot of people don't know about it. For some reason, people tend to skip along and miss this one. So bringing it to your attention today. It's called Chicken65 and Green Chutney. And there is a whole thing in the tips on this recipe about why it is called this recipe. Whether back in the day it used 65 chilies in it, or whether the chickens were reared for 65 days, or there's a whole lot of other different little stories about it. But I can promise you we are not using 65 chilies today. So we're going to start cooking first off, and we're going to make the marinade for the chicken. Now, I'm going to use chicken tenderloins today. The recipe says chicken thighs, but because we're actually going to be pan frying this, you really don't need to use a thigh. You can use any delicate meat. So I've gone for 500 grams of tenderloins and also about 250 grams of paneer cheese, which I adore more than anything. So I'm doing two. So I've increased the quantities of the marinade ingredients a little bit. So here is everything here. So it's coriander, ground coriander, a quarter of a teaspoon of chili for us. We don't like too much. Ground cumin, ground turmeric, 40 grams of corn flour, some pepper, salt, ginger paste, garlic paste, 2 eggs. Now, before I forget, if you don't have, I have garlic and ginger paste pre-made, just because I enjoy having them and I enjoy making them. But if you don't, then prior to starting, just chop some fresh ginger and fresh garlic, you know, about an inch or so of ginger and a clove or two of garlic together, 3 seconds, speed 7, and then go on with the recipe. So I'm throwing in all of those things that we just went through then. So they can all go in. The ginger paste and the garlic paste is getting stuck, so I'll just use the spatula for those. And the corn flour and pepper are the last to go in. So just confirming, I went with 2 eggs also, so they are going straight in. And then the juice of 2 limes, approximately 40 grams. So if I wanted to weigh this now, just to be sure, I can press the home button and then I can swipe across to my scales, and then I can weigh in my hopefully close to 40 grams. There you go, 37, back to bookmark, back to the recipe. That's where we left off. All right, so we'll continue on with now putting in the putting on the lid. Now, a slight little diversion from the recipe, because I can't help myself. I am going to also pop in a few curry leaves. So most supermarkets now have these. The recipe calls for these to be fried in oil and then used as a garnish, but I want to be able to taste them a little bit more, and we can even do that later as well because I have a whole punnet. You can also freeze these, so whatever you don't use, you can just throw in the freezer. So I'm going to save 1 to fry, and 1 stem will go into the marinade. So just have a quick look at what's going on in there. It looks pretty exciting. And we'll go with the next step, which is to just blend everything for 1 minute on speed 9. So I'll be back in 1 minute. Okay, so our 1 minute is up. And what we need to do now, oh wow, is have a look and appreciate our handiwork that we did in 1 minute. Look at that gorgeous looking marinade. So the recipe is now asking us to pop a bowl on top of the lid and weigh our chicken into it. So I already know what chicken I'm using, so I'm just going to pop the bowl and the cheese that I've already decided to use aside, and I'm going to now, that's the chicken, and then I'm going to pour over my marinade to coat it beautifully on both the chicken and the paneer. And I'm going to leave these to marinate for as long as I like. So if you want to pre-do these the day before, absolutely beautiful. I mean, any marinade, the longer the better. So pop these on the day before or in the morning if you've got people coming over and they can just do their thing on their own, gathering all that beautiful flavor. And I will pop these in the fridge, cover them up, pop them in the fridge, and then wash my bowl and dry my bowl. So we're going to do the drying together. With the washing, what that involves is I'm going to cover the blades with some hot water, put a tiny squidge of detergent in, and then I'm going to turbo on 2 seconds twice, and then I'm going to rinse the bowl and finish it off in the sink. About how to dry your bowl. I did the pre-wash on turbo. I went back, I finished it with the brush and just whittled it around, and it looks nice and clean. To dry it, I've sort of gone like so. But to get a properly dry mixing bowl so that you can go on to another step that's milling dry ingredients, you need to make sure it is really dry. So if I was just to go into chopping onions or chopping veggies or something that's a moist or wet ingredient, it really wouldn't matter. I could leave it as such. But for milling nuts, which is our next step, so nuts and seeds or anything dry like that, we go back to our turbo and we'll pop that on to 2 seconds and we'll just turn it on. Now with turbo, pressing the speed selector button won't open the arms. You need to press the home button. And what you'll find, I hope you can see this, around the side here, all the extra water that was under the blades has just been thrown out to the side of the bowl by the speed of that turbo function. And now I can just finish drying that. So we now have a clean, dry bowl for our next step. So what I don't seem to have brought back is my measuring cup, but I'll see how I go with that. Let's go back to the next step. And I've just put everything in the fridge, clean and dry mixing bowl. So 20 grams of pistachio nuts I don't have, so I am using walnuts. So I'm going to pop in the walnuts and I'm going to mill those. There's about 23 grams there. So I do need to pause for 1 second and grab my measuring cup because nuts is really something that you don't want to do without. So next step now with the measuring cup is to blend the nuts for 10 seconds on speed 10. I don't think it's going to need all of that time. So I stopped at 8 seconds, so anytime you can stop it just by pressing the speed selector button. Yeah, look, that's absolutely fine. That is nicely ground in 8 seconds, and I like the look of that. So the bowl could have been a little bit drier, so I probably could have given it an extra blitz on that turbo function, but for this recipe, it's okay. Okay, so mint and coriander go next. So I'll just weigh in those. I'm using the root of the coriander as well, and then, so they go in. And then 4 long green chilies. Now, believe it or not, I couldn't find long green chilies, but I found little bell peppers. So I've got 2 of those. They were about this size. If you can picture, that's what they would have looked like. So I'm putting in 2 bell peppers. They're definitely not as sweet as green capsicum. So I think they're closer to a chili. Now, here I am going to go off script a little bit. I am going to put in half an avocado. So reason being is I've actually made this chutney before, and if it doesn't have any fat in it, it's just not very nice. It's a little bit sharp and it needs something to round it off and make it that little bit more velvety. So the avocado goes in, and I'm putting in only half a lemon, the juice of half a lemon. I always figure that you can add more lemon. It's really hard to take it out. A teaspoon of ginger paste. So that, as I said, love to have on hand. So that goes in. And instead of water, 2 to 3 teaspoons of water, I'm going to pop in, I guess, 2 to 3 teaspoons of peanut oil. But when you buy peanut oil, try to buy the most expensive one that you can. I very rarely say that, but it makes such a difference. So a little gourmet bottle of peanut oil is amazing. So I've popped that in, and a little bit of salt. I'll add that at the end when I do my final taste. So lid and measuring cup can go on. And then again, another 1 minute blitz on speed 10. So I stopped this after 35 seconds because I could hear that it was fairly much all blended. I can see a couple of stalks that had been flipped to the top, which I'm just scraping down now. I can just tell you, I have already tasted this. It's absolutely beautiful. It might need a dash more lemon, haha, funny about that. So I am just going to add probably a quarter of a lemon, maybe another 10 grams of lemon juice. I'm going to give it another little blitz just to finalize those last bits of the stems that are in there. And the salt that the recipe called for, and it's out of this world. So yeah, a little bit of an adaptation, but well worth it, and probably why I like to do these videos, to just tweak these things a little bit. And I will next see you at the fry pan later on tonight when we cook our dinner. So up to the rice part of our dinner, and we couldn't decide if we wanted white or brown rice, so we're going to do a combination of white and brown. I have soaked half the quantity of brown rice in some water, just like this. I would usually use the round thermo server because it's got the lid and it would sit nicely. And that was about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I sort of think 2 hours is about the minimum. And I've weighed out the other half of the quantity, which is another 175 grams. I boiled some water in the kettle and I poured it into the bowl. And to bring it up to boiling point, I went into kettle mode, and then I brought it up to 100 degrees just by doing that. And now it's on 90, and I waited until it hit 100 and then chimed for me. But now it is hot enough to go into this recipe, which I will find by going into my recently cooked recipes, and it happens to be up here at the top. And I'm going to restart that recipe. So if I start cooking, it says to put 1,000 grams of water in. So I pre-boiled and brought up to temp about 1,100 grams. So that's already in the bowl. So now I'm going to add into this very hot bowl some salt, about 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And then I'm going to add about 20 grams of ghee, which is clarified butter. And then I'm going to insert the simmering basket. So the simmering basket already has our soaking brown rice in it, our portion of. So I'm going to pop that in. And then I'm going to go with next. So 175 grams of brown rice is in, and I would now weigh in 175-ish of white rice and go to our next step. And I'm going to mix the rice well with a spatula until it's all coated really well with water. There's about 1,100 grams of water in here, so it's submerging the rice is submerging quite well, and you can see that it's well and truly wet, and that's what we want for our rice combo. So it's about 1,100 grams of water, and then we go with next, lid on, and then next, and then we just put that on to speed 4. And in the meantime, we're going to zip over to the kitchen and start pan frying our lovely Chicken65 green curry with the patty. So I've heated a fairly generous amount of oil in the pan. And I'm just going to throw the calories in there and watch them sort of come to a popping fry, which will happen pretty quickly. And then once they're ready, I'll take them out and just put them aside to use as our garnish. So we've got a nice fry off, and I'll just check what they're looking like. Yep, once you start to feel they're a bit crispy, they're looking good. And if you notice over here, yes, I might have made some ciabatta today, which was and always is amazing. Okay, so we can take those out because they look good and they're nice and crispy. I can start to hear those. So they are our beautiful garnish for later on. Awesome. And I'm just going to pop them on some paper towel over here to drain, and don't they look great? Okay, so next step is to go with some of our frying. So we're going to go into the marinades and pick up some cheese. Looking great. And you can see that sizzle nicely, so I'll put in some cheese. and that looks amazing. And then, of course, to go with the cheese, maybe around 20, we are going to add some of the marinated chicken. So that looks good. I'll put in one more, and maybe one more cheese. So I'll let that do its thing for a little bit. And then when they're ready, I'll turn them over just to do the other side. And then I'll pop them on the towel to drain. But they should brown pretty quickly. Looks lovely. And the sauce smell absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to serve them with a little bit of the gorgeously made ciabatta. But they look amazing. So I can just start to flip over the cheese. That looks terrific. That looks absolutely divine. Marinated, crispy, stunning. Chicken's taking shape. Okay, so I'll let them all brown off and come back in a second. Okay, we are back at the Thermomix and it's time to take a look at our rice that's been cooking for 20 minutes. It's our brown and white rice combo. Perfectly cooked, 20 minutes, and it looks amazing. So we will take that out by popping the hook into the simmering basket and lifting out the rice out. I always have a tea towel usually for this purpose, but I will go with this like so. Just sort of that little bit of security with that, just that bit of steam at the onset of taking that out. But here we have a superb brown and white rice combination. It's cooked really well and it's done in 20 minutes. And you know, you could even trick the kids that there is, it's all white rice because the color has blended in so nicely. So I'm just going to stir that through a little bit and you can see how fluffy and how lovely that is for us to start plating. So I'll just pop a nice serve in the center of these plates. Whoops, doesn't really matter how much you put in, it's just personal preference at this point. And I'll go over here like so. I think that's probably enough for me. Moving that over and then bringing back. Oh, here's another thing I love to show at this point. See that starchy water? That's all from washing through the rice. So you're not eating all of that starch, which is a form of carbohydrate, which makes our rice a little bit lower GI because we're not eating it. So in here, I've got keeping warm what we cooked on the stove. And I just wilted some spinach. So I wilted that by popping it in a colander and drizzling some boiling water over it straight out of the kettle. I haven't seasoned it at all because the rice tastes beautiful with the ghee and the water and the salt going through it. And also we've just pan fried our, oops, I want extra spinach. So, and I've just pan fried all of these things so that it's plenty rich enough without adding anything onto the spinach, and there's going to be loads of flavor from what we've done over here. So we're just plating up with some lovely crunchy bits of the paneer cheese, and I just love this stuff. It's just so delicious. And then don't forget we made earlier our chutney, which you can just dollop nicely on the top of each one. And then our beautifully fried crispy curry leaves. And you could serve this anywhere, anytime, impress anyone. Super easy. I've got loads in the fridge still, and it's healthy, it's cost effective, and I'd say it's pretty impressive.